My family stole my name and $127,000 to live like Royals. Now they live behind bars. I didn't recognize the car at first. It was parked right outside my office building, a sleek red Maserati that didn't belong in our quiet part of downtown. The windows were tinted, the rims sparkled under the sun, and for a moment, I thought some executive had pulled up. Then I saw her step out. Aubrey, my younger sister, in oversized sunglasses, a crop top, and heels that clicked like gunshots on the pavement. "Surprise," she said, grinning. "Do you love it?" I blinked. "Is that yours?" "Technically," she shrugged. "Got a killer deal. Practically a steal." I stared at her. "You don't even have a job." She rolled her eyes like I was the unreasonable one. "Relax, Ray. Mom and Dad helped me out. They figured it's time I had something nice. You know, after everything I've been through." Everything apparently included skipping rent, quitting her last job after a week, and maxing out 3 credit cards under the guise of finding herself. I said nothing and walked past her, but a knot had already started forming in my stomach. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something felt off. A Maserati wasn't just a nice gift. And my sister had never been subtle when it came to money. She flaunted what she didn't earn. And somehow, my parents always made excuses for her. I opened my banking app and stared at the screen. My emergency fund, the one I'd built slowly over the last 4 years, had a balance of $127.43. I blinked again. That couldn't be right. For months ago, it had over $127,000. I had been preparing for a down payment on a home. Quietly, privately, without telling anyone. Because I knew that if my family found out I was saving, they'd find a way to make it their business. But I had made one mistake. That account was in the same bank where I'd helped set up a family emergency account years ago. Same last name. Same login email. My parents knew about it. I had just hoped they'd forgotten. I scrolled through the transactions. Wire transfer. Wire transfer. Withdrawal. Another transfer. All labeled Household Emergency Fund or A. Myers. A. Myers, Aubrey. My heart dropped. I stormed into my parents' kitchen the next morning. Mom was making coffee. Dad was watering the pathetic fern by the window. They looked up like I had just dropped in for breakfast. "Where's the money?" I asked. Mom blinked. "What money?" "You know what money," I snapped. "My emergency fund. It's gone. All of it." Dad set down the watering can. "Ray, honey."
"No. Don't Ray, honey me."
"I saved that money. I worked overtime for years. You told me that account was just in case something catastrophic happened." "Well," Mom started. Aubrey walked in, still in her pajamas, sipping some iced coffee like we weren't in the middle of a financial intervention. "She needed help," Mom continued. "The car was part of a fresh start. We thought you'd be proud." "Proud," I said. "You drained my account to buy her a luxury car." Aubrey shrugged. "You're always saving. It's not like you ever spend it." "I'm living a little. You could try that." I looked at her, then back at my parents. "You do realize this is identity theft, right?" I said quietly. "You used my information. You forged transfers. You bought a car in her name with my credit rating." Dad raised his hands. "Don't be dramatic." "I'm being precise," I shot back. "And you have 72 hours to fix this before I call the police." Mom's voice trembled. "Sweetheart, don't overreact."
"No. You don't get to gaslight me."
"Not this time." I turned to Aubrey. "You wanted a Maserati?
Fine."
But you're about to learn what it costs to lie and steal."
She scoffed.
"You're just jealous." I stared at her for a long moment.
"No, Aubrey."
"I'm finally done." And I was. The first thing I did when I got back to my apartment was sit down at my desk and open every financial portal I had. Checking, savings, retirement, emergency, credit reports. Within an hour, I realized the Maserati was only the beginning. My name had been used to co-sign an auto loan. I found my social security number tied to a second credit card I never applied for, balance $4, 326.57. The worst part? The mailing address had been changed. I hadn't received a single notice. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone and called the bank. I need to report identity theft, I said. And I need to freeze all activity linked to my accounts. Immediately. The woman on the other end was calm, but serious. Do you suspect the person is someone close to you? I hesitated.
Yes.
My own family. There was silence. Then she asked for verification, and I went through it, voice steady even though my gut was boiling. By the time we were done, my accounts were locked. The bank flagged suspicious transactions, and I was told to expect follow-up calls from their fraud department within 24 hours. They also advised me to file a police report. The moment I hung up, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring out. Then another call, this time my mother.
Decline.
A third, Aubrey.
Decline.
I wasn't ready. Not yet. I needed air. I grabbed my keys and drove to the only place I still considered neutral ground, Bryson's place. He opened the door in sweatpants and a hoodie, a half-eaten bowl of cereal in one hand and confusion all over his face. Ray, I need to sit down, I said, already pushing past him. I dropped onto his couch. He followed. You look like you just walked out of a courtroom. I might as well have. I exhaled. My family stole over $100,000 from me. His cereal spoon froze midair. Wait, what? They used my emergency fund to buy my sister a luxury car. That would have been bad enough. But I just found out my name is tied to a credit card I didn't open and an auto loan I didn't sign for. My SSN has been used without permission. They even changed mailing addresses, so I wouldn't notice. Bryson sat slowly beside me, jaw tight. Ray, that's not just a bad family moment. That's a federal crime. I know. I nodded. The bank flagged everything. They're starting an investigation. They want me to file a police report. He ran a hand through his curls.
Holy hell.
I stared at the floor. The worst part? I trusted them. I actually thought I was doing something noble, building a fund for emergencies. I never imagined the emergency would be them. We sat in silence for a while. Then he reached for the remote, paused, and looked at me. What's the move now? I smiled bitterly. The move is this. I'm done playing their provider. No more excuses. No more bailing them out. No more guilt. My phone buzzed again, another message from my mom. We need to talk. Please don't overreact. It's not what you think. I turned the screen to Bryson. It's exactly what I think, I said. He raised his glass of water like a toast. To consequences. I had just finished emailing the fraud report to the bank when the knock came. 3 short raps. Then a pause. Then 2 more. Only one person knocked like that. I opened the door. Mom, I said flatly. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired you get from a long day, the kind that comes from secrets starting to rot. She was holding a tote bag and wearing her I'm just here to talk smile. Can I come in? No, I said. Say what you need to say from the hallway. Her face twitched just a little. Sweetheart, this is getting out of hand. You froze the accounts. The bank called. Your father's having chest pains. I folded my arms. And Aubrey's driving around in a car registered with a loan she fraudulently co-signed under my name. That's not true. I stepped inside and came back with a printed copy of the loan agreement I'd requested from the bank that morning. Really? Because this says otherwise. And here's the best part. I pointed at the bottom. That's my signature. Or, at least, someone tried really hard to make it look like mine. Her expression shifted from concern to a kind of careful calculation. Ray, she said softly, we were trying to help Aubrey get back on her feet. You've always had more stability. You're strong. She's different. Different doesn't mean entitled to my identity. She panicked. We all did. I didn't reply. She tried a different tactic. Maybe we can talk to the bank. Explain it was a family misunderstanding.
No.
You don't get to reframe identity theft as a misunderstanding. I stepped closer. You knew what you were doing. You accessed my records. You let her use my name. And you changed the mailing address so I wouldn't find out. Her voice cracked then just a little. You're blowing up the family, Ray. No, you did that. I'm just turning on the lights. Her hands trembled. We're being contacted by collectors now. Some company is threatening to repossess the car. Aubrey says you're going to destroy everything. She destroyed it herself, I said coldly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a worn envelope. We found this in your old room. Maybe it'll remind you who you're really hurting. I didn't take it. Instead, I slowly closed the door. I'm done being the one who gets hurt.
Click.
I called Bryson 10 minutes later. She came to my place, I told him. Try to guilt me with the your dad's heart card. Said they're getting calls from collections. Let them sweat, he replied. You're not the villain here. I know. But hearing her say those things, it still stings. Of course it does, he said. But this time, Ray, you're not giving them a second chance. You're giving yourself one. The next morning, I got an email from the fraud unit. Attached were digital copies of 3 loan applications. All had my name. All had my social security number. And all had forged signatures. One wasn't even subtle. My last name was misspelled. I forwarded them to the local police department and scheduled a meeting with Detective Rivera, who specialized in financial crimes. If my family wanted to treat me like a walking credit score, fine. But I was done playing their ATM. Now, they'd learn what it felt like to be audited by someone who refused to look away. Detective Rivera was a quiet man, gray at the temples, methodical with his words, and the kind of guy who carried a pen like it was a weapon. Not a gunslinger. A surgeon. I sat across from him at the downtown precinct, the copies of the forged loan documents stacked neatly in a manila folder between us. Your name was used on 3 loan applications, he said, scanning the pages. Same handwriting, same forged signature. And you had no knowledge of any of them? None, I said. And that signature? I leaned in. That's not how I sign anything. Look at the R. It loops like a cartoon. He nodded. Any idea who might have done this? My parents. And my sister. He didn't flinch. Okay, he said. Let's talk about how deep this goes. By the time I left his office, the wheels were in motion. Rivera had filed a preliminary fraud report. He'd also advised me to check any property records under my name, just in case something else had been tied to me without consent. I didn't expect to find anything, but I was wrong. Later that night, Bryson and I sat in front of my laptop going through the county property records database. I typed in my name just to humor Rivera's advice. And there it was. A refinancing request for a downtown condo. Filed 2 weeks ago. Signed by me. Except I'd never seen the property before. And I'd certainly never authorized the application. Attached was a scanned copy of a document with my name at the top and the same lazy, looped R at the bottom. Bryson whistled. They're bold. I couldn't even speak. It was one thing to siphon my savings. But this was long-game fraud. This was an active, calculated strategy to build credit, buy property, and rack up loans, all on my name. And I was just starting to understand how far they'd taken it. The next day, Rivera called. We pulled surveillance footage from the bank where the refinancing was initiated, he said. Guess who showed up to hand-deliver the forms? My heart dropped. Aubrey, her, and your mother. Both of them. I closed my eyes, breathing slowly. Were they caught on video? Clear as day. He paused. There's something else. We checked her employment application with a major firm last month. She listed you as a reference. Claimed she had a degree in finance. Said she worked under you for 3 years. She what? Rivera sighed. You're not just looking at financial fraud, Ray. You're looking at a full identity theft case, plus impersonation, wire fraud, and forged documentation. Depending on the DA, this could go federal. I sat there, stunned. Aubrey had tried to become me. That evening, I got a text from my mom. We need to fix this. Please come over. Don't do anything drastic. Attached was a photo of my dad lying on the couch with an oxygen tube and a pathetic thumbs up. They were still trying to play the sympathy card. But I wasn't the same girl who used to flinch at guilt. I forwarded the photo to Rivera. The next morning, Eliza, my best friend and real estate agent, walked into my office holding 2 large coffees and a folder. "They tried to use your name to refinance my client's condo last month," she said, dropping the folder on my desk. "They submitted your W-2 forms, but the signature didn't match and we flagged it." My stomach twisted. "Are you serious?" "I am. And I've already sent everything to Rivera, including the fake employment verification." She narrowed her eyes. "I don't care if they're your family. They messed with the wrong woman." I nodded slowly. "They're about to learn what that means." They started with texts. "You're tearing us apart. Dad might not make it through this. Aubrey didn't mean harm. Please just stop. We're family." Then the calls came. I stopped answering after the 4th voicemail. But the knock on my apartment door, that was new. I looked through the peephole.
Aubrey.
She stood there in a leather jacket and platform sneakers, arms crossed like a teenager grounded for the weekend. I opened the door just far enough to speak through the chain. "You have 30 seconds. Her eyes flared. "You're unbelievable," she hissed. "You're actually doing this. You're letting Rivera tear this family apart." I tilted my head. "You mean the Rivera you forced into this by committing actual fraud?" She stepped forward, and the chain caught the door before it could swing wider. "I needed help. I was drowning. You always had everything, the grades, the job, the apartment. You could have saved us all, but instead you went and tattled like a coward." "Tattled?" I laughed once, bitter. "I reported a felony. That's not tattling. That's surviving." She didn't flinch. "You're going to regret this. You made enemies." "I made boundaries," I said. "It's different." She pulled something from her bag and shoved it through the gap. "A letter. You'll want to read that before court. See you there." She walked away without another word. I didn't open the letter. Instead, I forwarded her visit to Detective Rivera. That same evening, Rivera called me. "We've confirmed your signature was forged on multiple accounts. The property title, the auto loan, even the education documents Aubrey submitted to apply for a federal grant." I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" "She applied as you. FAFSA, scholarship forms. Even tried to get a tax refund under your name." I sat down on the edge of my bed. "And the result?" "She got flagged for inconsistent addresses. That's how we caught it." He paused. "And one more thing. The district attorney has approved a warrant. We'll move within the next 48 hours. The next morning, my mother showed up at my office building. Security called me before letting her in. She says she's here with documents for an ongoing case, they told me. I asked them to escort her out. I watched her from the window, standing in the lobby, tear-streaked, holding a manila envelope like it would change anything. Later that night, I received a message from her.
"Ray, please.
Your sister is scared. Your father is barely sleeping. We made mistakes, yes, but don't destroy your blood. You're not that kind of girl." I didn't respond. Instead, I typed out a statement for the victim impact report Detective Rivera had requested. It started like this. "My name is Ray Morgan, and my family used me like an open vault. They didn't just steal my money, they stole my identity, my future, and my peace. And I am here to take it all back." It happened just after noon. I was finishing a budget review when Bryson texted me a link. "Local family accused of identity theft, fraud. Daughter presses charges." Underneath the headline was a blurry shot of my parents being escorted from their house in handcuffs. Aubrey was in the background, shouting at the officers. She looked wild, no makeup, hair pulled into a knot, yelling something about lies and a setup. The story had already gone viral. Within an hour, my inbox filled with media requests. "Would you be willing to give a statement? Is it true your sister stole over $$100,000 using your identity? What would you say to your family right now?" I said nothing. I deleted every message. But they weren't done. My mother went on camera. She gave an exclusive interview to a local station, sitting in a beige living room with carefully placed tissues beside her, like she'd been crying all morning. She was always distant, she said. I don't know why Ray is doing this. We're a family. Families fight. But pressing charges? That's not how I raised her. I watched in silence. Bryson was fuming. You'd think you had stolen from them. I muted the volume. It wasn't about defending myself anymore. It was about letting the facts do the talking. Detective Rivera called later that evening. The evidence is airtight, he said. We've matched handwriting samples, verified IP addresses, confirmed that your information was used across 6 financial institutions. The prosecution is moving forward. And the interviews? I asked. He sighed. It's their attempt to sway public opinion. But we've got surveillance, paper trails, and signed confessions from 2 bank employees who processed the forged documents. You're solid. Still, I felt the weight in my chest. The news was everywhere now. Friends I hadn't heard from in years messaged me. Is this really happening? Are you okay? I never liked your sister. Eliza showed up with wine, and the sharpest response I'd heard all week. They're so stupid, she said, dropping onto my couch. They robbed someone with receipts. We toasted in silence. Then she said, Have you thought about what comes next? I looked at her. You mean the trial? No, she said. I mean your life, once they're no longer in it. That night, I opened the letter Aubrey had shoved through my door days ago. Inside was a single sheet. You ruined us. I hope you enjoy sleeping in that new apartment while the rest of us rot. Just remember, this will follow you. Everyone will know what kind of person you are. I folded the letter in half, walked to the sink, and set it on fire with a kitchen match. The flame curled her words into smoke. I watched until it burned out completely. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not the air, the silence. Everyone was watching me. My parents sat to my left, hands folded, eyes low. Aubrey, in an ill-fitting blazer, refused to look anywhere but forward. The judge flipped through the case file slowly, like he was rereading a tragedy he'd seen one too many times. Then the bailiff called my name. Miss Ray Morgan. The court has received your statement. Do you wish for it to be read aloud before sentencing? I stood. Yes, I said. I do. He nodded to the clerk, who unfolded a single page. Your Honor. My name is Ray Morgan, and for years I believed I was the strong one in my family, the dependable one, the one who sacrificed for others without complaint. I worked long hours, saved every cent, helped everyone, even when they didn't ask, even when it hurt. I created an emergency fund for the people I loved. They turned it into a buffet. They drained my savings, stole my name, built false credit, bought luxury, and called it help. They forged my signature, lied to banks, used my identity to apply for loans, housing, and grants. They gambled with my future, like it was theirs to lose. And when I said no, when I finally stood up, they called me cruel, cold, heartless. But I'm not heartless. I'm done. Done being the safety net. Done being the scapegoat. Done pretending that family means silence. This was not a mistake. It was a campaign. And I'm here to say, I survived it. And I will not apologize for saving myself. The courtroom stayed quiet for several seconds after the statement ended. Not even the reporters whispered. Then the judge cleared his throat. I've reviewed the evidence, he said. The forgeries, the surveillance footage, the falsified documents, and most importantly, the victim impact. He turned to my family. Mr. and Mrs. Morgan and Miss Aubrey Morgan, you are each sentenced to 5 years in prison for identity theft, wire fraud, and falsification of federal documents. You will be eligible for parole in 3. Aubrey gasped. My mother's hands flew to her mouth. My father simply closed his eyes. The gavel hit wood. And it was over. Outside, reporters swarmed me. Ray, do you have anything to say to your family? I didn't stop walking. But I did say one thing over my shoulder. I already said it. In court. 2 weeks later, I stood in my new kitchen, Real granite counters, Riyals sunlight pouring in, and real peace. Eliza brought champagne. Bryson brought a toolbox. He was fixing a cabinet that didn't actually need fixing. Rivera texted me a photo of the prison intake log, and I didn't even bother opening it. I wasn't tracking them anymore. I was done. That night, I stood barefoot on my new balcony, glass in hand, city lights buzzing beneath me. I wasn't the same Ray. Not the daughter. Not the sister. Not the ATM. I was the story. I was the ending. And I was the one who wrote it.